Florida does retirement rather well, or so the brochures have always promised. Warm winters, palm trees, golf courses with ocean views, waterfront condominiums where you can watch the sunset from your balcony. For decades, British retirees have crossed the Atlantic chasing that dream. But something has changed in the past 2 years. Of the 20 largest home price drops recorded across America between January 2025 and January 2026, 15 of them were in Florida, not scattered randomly. Concentrated along the coast, in the very towns that retirement brochures made famous. Insurance premiums have tripled overnight. Condominium owners are receiving emergency bills for £100,000 they never expected. Retirees are watching their life savings evaporate as home values plummet month after month. Entire streets where every third house displays a for sale sign. Migration into the state has collapsed by 93% in just 3 years. These are not exaggerated headlines or clickbait predictions. These are documented market conditions that have puzzled economists and devastated homeowners across the Sunshine State. What follows are 10 Florida beach towns where home prices are crashing right now, and why British buyers considering the Sunshine State need to understand what is actually happening before they sign anything. Let us begin. Number 10. Vero Beach. Vero Beach sits on Florida's Treasure Coast, about 2 hours north of Miami. It has long attracted British retirees seeking something quieter than the chaos further south. Fewer crowds, smaller restaurants, the kind of place where shopkeepers remember your name. But the numbers have shifted dramatically. The median listing price has dropped 8% in just 2 years, from $475,000 in February 2024 to $437,000 in February 2026. Some calculations show the decline closer to 10% depending on which properties you measure. Homes that once sold within weeks now sit for over 4 months, 131 days on average. And when they do sell, the final price comes in 26% below where it stood 12 months ago. Local estate agents describe what they call a disconnect. Sellers still expecting pandemic-era prices, buyers seeing the inventory pile up and making offers well below asking. One agent in Vero Beach, Michael Merrill with Douglas Elliman, put it plainly. Sellers are losing their leverage in this environment. They are getting more realistic in their pricing. What the brochures do not mention is that 66% of properties in Vero Beach face severe flood risk over the next 30 years. That risk is now priced into every negotiation. Heading south along the coast, we reach Fort Lauderdale. Number 9. Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale built its identity on waterways. Canals thread through residential neighborhoods. Yachts moored behind million-dollar homes. They called it the Venice of America. But those waterways now represent something else entirely: risk. Fort Lauderdale sits among the 5 Florida markets identified as experiencing significant price correction, alongside Cape Coral, Lakeland, Palm Bay, and West Palm Beach. The concentration is striking. Redfin forecasts that homes in coastal Florida, including Fort Lauderdale, will sit longer on the market through 2026. The reasons they cite are heightened natural disaster risk, surging insurance costs, and remote workers relocating back to cities with office requirements. The condominium market has been hit hardest. In the first half of 2025, median listing prices for condos dropped nearly 11% compared to 2023. Statewide, condominium markets show 13.2 months of supply. Prices are down over 6% year on year. 92% of major condo markets are declining. Fort Lauderdale's waterfront lifestyle, the very thing that made it desirable, now makes insurance companies nervous. Nervous insurance companies either raise premiums or leave entirely. Number 8. Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater. The Tampa Bay region represents one of Florida's largest metropolitan areas. Over 3 million people spread across beaches, suburbs, and a revitalized downtown. It was also one of the pandemic's biggest winners. Remote workers flooded in from expensive coastal cities, and prices climbed 40 to 50% in just 2 years. Now the correction has arrived. Tampa's Shiller index has posted 13 consecutive months of annual decline. It was down 3.9% through November 2025. Home prices fell 6% in 2025 alone, and analysts expect the decline to continue through at least the first quarter of 2026. The market has shifted dramatically toward buyers. Inventory is up nearly 15% year-on-year, and supply has reached 5.4 months. Condominiums and townhomes have been hit hardest. Prices are down 12% compared to just 1.5% for detached homes. Zillow places the average Tampa home value at $376,000, down 4.2% over the past year. The St. Petersburg, Clearwater, and Tampa metro area ranks 6th nationally for projected price decline, with 3.6% expected through 2026. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Even after these declines, Tampa Bay home prices remain 40 to 50% higher than before the pandemic. Buyers looking at the current prices may not realize they are still paying pandemic premiums, just slightly smaller ones. Naples has always been different, wealthier, more exclusive. Golf courses designed by famous architects, waterfront estates with private docks, the retirement destination for those who could afford the premium. Even Naples is not immune. The metro area shows nearly 6% price correction. Inventory has climbed to 14.3 months of supply, the highest level on record. Median sale prices have slipped to $525,000. This continues a decline from the peak of $617,000 in early 2024. Homes in Naples now take between 83 and 112 days to sell. Total closed sales dropped over 21% compared to the previous year. Roughly 88% of homes sell below asking price. What strikes observers is the rise in monthly costs beyond the mortgage. Homeowners Association fees average over $550 monthly. Special assessments are adding thousands more. These fees discourage buyers who calculate the true cost of ownership. Naples still ranks among the most expensive places to live in North America. Median home prices hover around $720,000. But the outmigration from Florida has lowered demand. People are leaving due to rising costs, climate risks, and what some describe as political polarization. The wealthy still buy at the very top of the market. The middle tier has stalled. Number 6. Northport, Sarasota, and Bradenton. Northport exploded during the pandemic. Remote workers discovered affordable homes an hour south of Tampa, and prices climbed as inventory vanished. It felt like the future of Florida real estate. The correction has been severe. Northport, Sarasota, and Bradenton show over 7.5% price decline. The average home value in Northport sits at $318,000, down 9.3% over the past year. Homes sell after 102 days on the market, up from 82 days the previous year. The Sarasota-Bradenton area ranks second highest in the country for projected price decline, nearly 9% expected. Perhaps most striking is the long-term picture. Typical home sales prices in Northport have fallen 20% compared to 3 years ago. What happened? The migration surge ended. Net domestic inflows to Florida collapsed from over 310,000 in 2022 to just 22,000 in 2025, a 93% decline. Northport leaned heavily on that migration. Now it absorbs the aftermath of an oversupplied market with retreating demand. Local agents push back against the national headlines. They describe the decline as a healthy correction rather than a collapse, a recalibration to sustainable levels. Perhaps they are right. But for anyone who bought at the peak, sustainable levels mean watching equity disappear. Number 5. Punta Gorda. Punta Gorda sits in Charlotte County, a smaller community north of Fort Myers. Known for its historic downtown, fishing culture, and quieter pace, it attracted retirees seeking affordability without sacrificing coastal access. The decline here has been the steepest in Florida, nearly 12% price correction, the largest percentage drop in the state. Median values have fallen over 7% in dollar terms, roughly $26,000 lost on the typical home. The average Punta Gorda home value sits at $414,000, down over 3% in the past year alone. March 2026 listings show median prices of $393,000, down 5% from the previous year. What makes Punta Gorda different is Hurricane Ian. In September 2022, Ian made landfall as a Category 4 storm. It crossed directly through Charlotte County, homes destroyed, infrastructure damaged, lives lost. The rebuilding began, but so did the insurance exodus. Companies that had written policies in Charlotte County for decades began not renewing policies for customers. Premiums for those who could find coverage doubled and tripled. The compounding effect created a perfect storm of declining value, hurricane damage, insurance crisis, and price correction all arriving together. Fort Myers was ground zero for Hurricane Ian. The storm made landfall nearby with winds of 150 miles per hour. Storm surge reached 15 feet in some areas. Entire neighborhoods were flattened. The images broadcast around the world showed devastation that seemed almost impossible in modern America. The housing market has not recovered. The average Fort Myers home price sits at $340,000. That is down over 10% since last year. Lee County is projected to be the only metro area in the nation where typical home prices fall by double digits in 2026. Homes are taking longer to sell. The median days on market reached 79 days, up from 56 the previous year. That is a 41% increase, one of the sharpest slowdowns in Southwest Florida. 4 of the 5 American metro areas that experienced the biggest price drops between January 2025 and January 2026 were in Southwest Florida. Fort Myers sits at the center of that shift. Local industry figures push back against the national narrative. Randy Thibault, a veteran analyst, argues that the current adjustment is far milder than the housing crash of 2006 to 2009. Sam Grimes, another local expert, emphasizes data over drama. They may be right about the comparison to 2008. For individual homeowners watching their equity evaporate, the distinction provides little comfort. Number 3. Cape Coral. Cape Coral requires its own examination. This city of over 200,000 residents sits across the Caloosahatchee River from Fort Myers. It was built on an audacious premise. Developers carved over 400 miles of canals through the landscape, more canal miles than any city on Earth. The promise was simple: affordable waterfront living, a boat in every backyard. During the pandemic, that promise drew buyers from across America and overseas. Prices soared over 60% between 2020 and 2022. Now the correction dominates national headlines. Home prices dropped roughly 10% over the past year. Compared to the pandemic peak of August 2022, median sales prices have fallen over 13%. The Wall Street Journal labeled Cape Coral the worst housing market in America. Current median prices sit around $375,000. Down nearly 4% from last year. Homes sell after 69 days on average. Inventory has exploded. Nearly 3,500 homes currently available. Supply is up almost 20% year on year. Months of supply have reached over 8 months. And then there is flood risk. 89% of properties in Cape Coral face severe flooding risk over the next 30 years. Nearly 80,000 properties are likely to be severely affected. Local agents bristle at the national coverage. Sam Yaffe, a realtor with over 20 years' experience in Southwest Florida, questions why national outlets keep picking on the region. Homeowners express complicated feelings. Chuck Davis, a Cape Coral resident, puts it this way: "For those that have to sell, I feel bad for them. They are not going to sell for their asking price. For those that can hang on, they will do fine. That distinction matters. Those who can wait may see recovery. Those who must sell now face painful losses." Number 2, the condominium crisis. Before we reach number 1, we must examine something affecting every coastal building in Florida, something that strikes at the heart of how British retirees typically enter the Florida market: the condominium crisis. It began with a tragedy. On June 24th, 2021, Champlain Towers South in Surfside collapsed without warning. 98 people died in their beds. The investigation revealed decades of deferred maintenance. Structural problems were documented but never addressed. Reserve funds were depleted because owners voted to keep monthly fees low. Florida's legislature responded with sweeping reform. Buildings 3 stories or higher now require mandatory structural inspections. Milestone inspections are required at 30 years and every 10 years after. Reserves must be fully funded. The decades-long practice of waiving reserves to keep dues low is now illegal. As of January 1st, 2026, the grace period ended. The bill for deferred maintenance has come due, all at once. The numbers are staggering. Special assessments ranging from $10,000 to over $100,000 per unit have become common in older coastal buildings. At the Cricket Club in North Miami, residents received assessments as high as $134,000. At Mediterranean Village in Aventura, some owners faced $400,000 assessments. Beyond structural repairs, property insurance keeps rising. Flood insurance through the federal program increases 15 to 18% annually. One community manager described the situation as one of the biggest crises impacting older Floridians on fixed incomes. The human cost is immense. One condo owner, in tears, said her concern is that they will lose their property. Another said she does not have money to buy groceries. When she raised concerns at a board meeting, she was told that if she cannot afford to live there, she needs to move. A study from the Florida Policy Project found that many condo owners simply cannot afford the fee increases. Some may face eviction. Buildings could be condemned. For British retirees, condominiums often represent the entry point to Florida living, the affordable option before potentially upgrading to a single-family home. That entry point now carries risks that did not exist 5 years ago. Number 1. The insurance crisis. Everything we have discussed leads here. Every price decline, every market correction, every homeowner struggling to sell. At the root of Florida's housing troubles sits a single word: insurance. Florida now has the highest home insurance rates in America. The average policy costs $7,562 per year, according to data from 2026. Other estimates place it closer to $5,600. Either figure dwarfs the national average. More than a dozen insurers have left Florida or gone insolvent since 2020. The reasons are straightforward. Florida accounts for 79% of homeowner insurance lawsuits in the nation. Hurricane Ian alone caused $113 billion in damage. Insurance companies that remain have raised premiums dramatically. Some homeowners in high-risk coastal zones have seen premiums quadruple since 2020. Annual costs have reached $7,000 to $9,000. In Tampa Bay and Naples, premiums per month add $500 to $800 to housing costs, almost like paying a second mortgage. Florida leads the nation in foreclosure filings. Nearly 0.5% of homes received filings in 2025. Almost 5,000 filings occurred in January 2026 alone. There are signs of stabilization. Governor Ron DeSantis announced rate relief for Citizens Property Insurance policyholders beginning in spring 2026. Some carriers have filed for decreases. Statewide drops of up to 14% may arrive in South Florida, but for many, the relief comes too late. Without insurance, a home sale cannot be completed. Both buyers and sellers are affected when coverage is hard to find or simply unaffordable. And beneath all the policy discussions sits a harder truth. The statewide decline in listing prices has been driven by cratering values in coastal metropolitan areas. The very places exposed to sea level rise and regular flooding in coming years and decades. Florida has the longest shoreline of any state in the lower 48. Projections indicate some of the worst sea level rise in America will impact these areas. The risks posed by climate change are expected to intensify. The Florida dream is not dead. Statewide prices are expected to decline an additional 2 to 4% through year-end 2026. This is not a bubble popping. It is a structural repricing of carrying costs that the market is still absorbing. For British retirees considering Florida, the paradise remains real. The beaches have not moved. The sunshine has not dimmed. The golf courses still wind through manicured landscapes. But so are the costs that the brochures never mentioned. The insurance premiums that arrive each year larger than before. The special assessments that appear without warning. The flood maps being redrawn to include neighborhoods that were safe a decade ago. The land remembers what the marketing prefers to forget.